Hi, I'm Nick from Essex Boatyard, and I just wanted to go through a few basic boat manoeuvring techniques with you this morning. We're currently on a 2009 Fairline Targa 47, which is fitted with twin Volvo D9 575 engines. This particular boat has got a benefit of bow and stern thruster, but during the manoeuvring I will just use the bow thruster, just so it keeps it reasonable. Now, what I wanted to do first of all was explain the controls and how this directly affects the manoeuvring of the boat. Now, with these particular Volvo controls, you can see they're quite nicely shaped. Now, if the engines were running, we're actually alongside a finger at the moment. If I was to put this into gear like that, the boat would want to behave like this. So the back will come away from the pontoon, but the front will actually go towards it. So to counteract that, what I would do to come off this particular pontoon, the wind is actually taking us onto the finger, is put it into gear and simultaneously use the thruster here to take us away from the pontoon. The steering is currently in the dead ahead position. Okay, so that will take the boat, effectively crab the boat away from the pontoon. Similarly, if we were alongside a finger with this side, then we would do the same with this particular shift. Now, this shift will create a crabbing motion in that direction, so the boat will twist to starboard. And again, we can use the thruster to make the boat travel sideways. This is also true in reverse. So if I was to be alongside the port side as we are now, if I was to put this particular drive into reverse, the boat will pull away, the stern will pull away from the finger. We can then use the thruster to take the boat out sideways. The other thing that's going to affect particularly parking of the boat on a day like today is the wind, and here in Essex we have tide. So the tide currently is coming in, so the water is travelling in that direction, and the wind, if I just look at the yacht behind me, the wind is absolutely on my beam. So currently the wind is stronger than the tide, so the boat is physically stuck to the finger on the port side of this boat. So what I'll do now is I will start the engines and prepare to take the boat out. Okay, so we're now on tide, we're still stuck to the finger. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push the bow out right now. What that does is that gains momentum, so the bow is now swinging. And then I'm going to thrust away, and the boat will now travel sideways away from the finger. And then we can clear the finger easily enough. Now, purists will say, don't use the bow thruster, try and do everything without it, but that's fine, in certain circumstances, that's absolutely cool. But what I say to people is, have you got a washing machine? And they say, yeah. And I say, well, do you wash your clothes in the sink? And they say, no. Well, this is exactly the same thing with bow thrusters. Oh, but what if it goes wrong? Okay, well, I've driven an awful lot of boats, and I haven't actually had one fail yet. I've had people turn off the red button, but I've not actually had one fail on me. Now, what I'm going to do now is demonstrate, and the helm does work against popular belief, it does work at low speed. So the rudders are actually effective at this speed. So what I'm going to do now is, the boat is now going to just wobble around in the wind and the tide. So as you can see, we're in relatively close quarters here. Now the bow's gaining momentum and it's heading towards this particular boat. Now if I put this control, so the starboard control, in astern, then it will pull the boat backwards, and at the same time it will continue to allow the boat to turn. So the boat's actually wanting to turn into the tide at the moment. So if I encourage that turn, then I just simply pull that stick backwards. Now, if I want to continue the turnaround, I can continue to do this, and then the force of the propeller on this side pushing the boat will continue it to turn. I can then put this one in astern, and the boat will pretty much turn on its own axis. If I want to control the way the boat sits on its axis, I can increase the RPM or decrease depending on what's actually happening. Now the boat will continue to turn because of the momentum it carries. This boat's particularly heavy, it's about 15 tonnes. So I can again just bring the boat round, and we can pretty much do whatever we want to do, just using the controls. So if I wanted to come alongside this particular boat here, I haven't got fenders, but I will manoeuvre the boat into a position where we can come alongside it. I won't touch it, I hope. So what I'm doing now is the boat now, we need to be going forwards or backwards to take the most effect of these controls. So the boat now is travelling backwards. So if I was to push this gear into forwards, the boat will twist to starboard. Now when manoeuvring in close quarters, there's never any need to use more than gear engaged, generally speaking, unless there's a good reason to do so. So now I'm using the momentum of the boat travelling forwards. Now if I put this one astern, I'm going to bring the bow away from this particular boat. The wind wants to throw me alongside it. Okay, so now the boat is pretty much going to park itself. It's travelling at a comfortable speed sideways. The bow's slightly out of kilter. I'm going to push the bow away from this particular boat. That in turn pushes the stern towards it because it's an equal and opposite reaction. So we're now within a reasonably close distance to this particular boat. So what I'm going to do is take us away using the forwards and reverse motion. So the boat is now travelling sideways. Again, ahead. The boat is travelling forwards and sideways. Then I can use this forward momentum to actually pull the stern around at the same time. Without forward or stern motion, this particular manoeuvre is pretty useless. Okay, so if we travel over here, what I'll do is I'll turn the boat now. Now the wind, this is a relatively dangerous move because the wind is coming from this direction. As the wind finds more of the boat, as I become more beam on, the boat will travel in that direction using the wind. So what I'm going to do is use the thruster and take us away again. So you can see a shaft drive boat with high pitched propellers, as these do have, a planing boat tends to have high pitched propellers, will enable you to manoeuvre the boat in relatively quite tight quarters without any real need for concern, even on a day like today, with wind, with tide and all the rest of it. So again, because of this nice shape of the controls, you can almost see what's going to happen. Okay, so that brings the boat, that brings the stern to starboard, the shape of the stern to starboard. It's pulling the boat, so the boat is being pulled in this direction by the propeller. So the three things that can affect the parking of your boat is you, the driver, the wind and the tide. Now it's quite important, especially in close quarters, that you don't give the boat an incorrect input. Now I know at times, you know, you'll be coming alongside and the blood pressure starts to raise and everything else, but you need to think about what your input is going to do before you get to that point. So I'm going to push the bow round, okay, the bow's going to go round with the momentum of the thruster, and then that pushes in turn pushes the stern round. So we're now going to come alongside this finger. We've got about 15 knots of wind blowing at the moment, so nothing to worry about. Now what's going to happen now is the boat's going to park itself. Now the inputs you need to park the boat are very, very low. All I want to do now, slow the boat down.